Today I am joined by Julia Jordan Kamanda, who is a singer-songwriter and music educator. She founded J3 Music Studios, where she specializes in teaching kids about music and creativity as well as their parents, and talking about creative parenting and how you connect with your children through artistic expression. Julia is also a children's book author, and she has 2 books out introducing musical concepts to kids. Julia and I talked today about how to parent and stay creative and connected to your creativity during a pandemic, helping her daughter deal with some new anxiety since the murder of George Floyd and what it's like to live in a mixed family during this time. And also a bit about her work with her husband called the Creative Arts Initiative in Sierra Leone, where they empower young orphan girls through creativity. Hi, Julia!
Hi, Julia.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Kids are home all the time. I love them, but it's a lot.
How old are your kids now?
Sakani is turning 8 and Sienna is 9.5.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Oh my
It
God,
went really
that's so
fast.
big.
Yeah, we're just going with the flow. We're gonna
Right.
roll with the punches here.
Yeah. So we met when you were 14
Right.
and I was 9.
That's right. That
So
was
we
fun.
were in Tada together, Tada Youth Theater Ensemble in New York City.
Yep.
And I remember I was in complete awe of you. Like I thought,
What?
yes, we were in this musical theater group and we were all singing and dancing, but you were the only one writing music. And
All right.
I thought that was amazing. And I had not
Right.
started writing at that point when we met.
Okay.
But it
Wow.
was actually that year I started writing music for the first time. So
When you were 9, you
yeah.
started writing music? I
Yeah.
love that.
How
I
old
love
were
that.
you when you started?
Oh, when I picked up a guitar. I mean, which was 14, 15.
Oh,
Like
so
high
that's
school.
right when you started too?
It was right when I started.
I'm just surprised that that's when you started because I remember the song that you wrote when you were 14. Like I could sing it for you right now.
I just remember this song. Do you really remember that?
I do because do you want to hear
Can I
it?
hear it? I want to hear it.
And when I dream of you, I only dream a shadow. Da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na.
That's exactly how it went. I can't believe you remember that. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Oh, I remember it. Well, first of all, it sounds like a professional
that.
pop song. You know, like the fact that you wrote that when you were 14 and it was just your first, your
Right.
first year of writing. But I was just, I
Right.
was just like,
Wow.
this is the real thing. She
I
knows
love
what she's
it.
doing and I want to do this. I mean, that was part of it too,
I
obviously.
love that.
So that was just to say you were really like one of my early role models and
I love that.
inspirations as a
Aw,
kid.
that's really cool to know.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear kind of how you're doing since the pandemic started.
We are doing surprisingly well because for one thing, we've been really lucky that like work didn't actually change all that much for either one of us. What changed for my husband is that what he does like on a regular basis, his film is his art and his love and his spirit. But he also runs a nonprofit in Sierra Leone that
Right.
delivers microloan grants and is developing this children's community in the village there. And so he travels a lot. He's gone for long stretches of time. And right now that hasn't been happening, which has been amazing. So for us, it's actually been really nice because he's been home and he's been trying to run that from here. So, and I think we're also kind of like go with the flow sort of people. So what we did pretty much about a week after our kids were sent home in March, mid-March, he looked at me and he said, "We need a green screen." And I was like, okay, but like, can we find like an inexpensive one? Like, do we really need one? Like, I didn't really quite grasp. So we went onto Amazon and like within a week ordered a green screen and a lighting kit. and then turned our studio into like a play space for like pretending we're flying over buildings, and we brought the kids down and we'd be all in our PJs just like, my son's like sitting here at the computer like hitting record and hitting stop, and he was like our little audio engineer, and Sienna was on camera with her mic, and we were just like making videos and just sort of passing on our love for just this creative space that we were all of a sudden given to our kids.
Yeah.
And it was just so rewarding, like just to see how excited they got to do that work with us. So, in that regard, I feel like our spirits have been satisfied, like we've been feeling snug together and safe.
Yeah.
It's starting to feel a little bit more heavy. We like are very aware of world events, and we're very aware of what's going on just like within the Black community and between certain Black communities, certain white communities, and just a lot of the tensions that are going on. And as a mixed family, there's a lot of tension around those conversations because our kids are just at the age where they're becoming aware of what is popping on the news and what they're hearing on NPR. So, we've been experiencing anxiety, in particular with our 9-year-old. She really has a lot of worries all of a sudden that have started. So parenting has become really real for us recently.
Yeah.
Having difficult conversations with our kids that we realize some of our friends down the street don't need to have those conversations, or they're coming up when they feel like it, or they're able to sugarcoat certain things that are going on in the country that we feel like we really can't.
Right. So,
long answer to say things have been okay, but there's a lot, and so it weighs heavy. So the creativity's drying up a little bit. It's just real. The day to day. We're not sleeping as much, which I've been hearing from a lot of people. Like just like poor sleep. It's really hard to focus. So that's
hard to focus.
Is that what you're experiencing too?
Yeah. How do you know when it's time to talk about these issues, and how do you navigate, keeping them safe, keeping them feeling safe, but also being aware of what dangers they might face? I mean, they're still really little.
We just decided as a couple early on that we would always be honest with our kids. Mm-hmm. So as they're asking questions, we're answering them. And we're answering them at the level that they, like, certain histories of situations that we're going through and that we're seeing on the news and that's happening around us. I mean, we live in a pretty mixed conservative and liberal area in central Pennsylvania. We live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So there's areas that are super conservative, and then downtown, which is much more liberal and super mixed. Now, we live just outside of downtown in a slightly different school district. So one house, one family feels one way, one family feels another way. And issues related to race are difficult to have. The conversations related to race are difficult to have with neighbors sometimes. Issues with whether or not masks work and whether or not we should wear them are coming up. And and we're like, and our kids see that. I mean, they're, like I said, they see those things. My son is much more internal. Like, he sees it and he stays quiet and he listens and he doesn't really ask a lot. But our daughter is, because she's becoming a little bit more anxious, she's sort of worrying at night. She's having trouble understanding, and so she's asking a lot of questions. When George Floyd died, I think that was for her. She saw that and she was like, and of course she didn't see the video. Like, that's what I mean. We're not showing them these things, but the conversation is continuing and continuing and continuing because it has to. And she's experienced racism already at this age. On the school bus, it happened in kindergarten. It's happened around her and to her and around us. And she's heard us talk about how we're going to handle the conversations that we've found ourselves in here and there. And she asks questions and we answer honestly. And
Yeah.
we don't bring it up necessarily. I don't think my husband's planning on having a discussion with our son about, the way he moves through the world.
The talk, yeah.
I don't think he's planning on doing that yet,
Yeah.
but I can almost guarantee that he will. And, it probably will be at some point when he needs to hear that. But it's heavy. So that's what I'm saying. Like, parenting has gotten really heavy right now.
Right.
So we've been trying to leave a lot of space for creativity and space. We have a garden. We've been trying to like create beauty around us, talk and experience those things so that there's an anchor of love and support and beauty and creativity in their lives all the time. And for us too.
Right. Do you mind if I ask, and also just if there's anything that like I ask that's too personal, just let me know, and like we'll edit it out. But like what kinds of things is your daughter doing that makes you concerned that she's anxious?
She gets really bad stomach aches.
Oh, okay.
She worries. So it's like her automatic thinking is that something's wrong.
Yeah.
And she kind of panics in these moments where it's like, it's okay, everything's fine, you see her sort of, she's been sort of regressing a little bit, like she's been carrying her blanket around, and she's almost 10, she doesn't sleep in her own bedroom. She has an amazing bedroom that we renovated for her 9th birthday, and she slept in it a handful of times. Yeah. She sleeps in her brother's room. And the reason is because she's afraid something will happen at night and she will be by herself and she won't know what to do.
Right.
And talking about, well, if there's a fire, here's what we do. Like talking about the very pragmatic, like, okay, if you're afraid of what to do, let's talk about it so that like she almost can't handle that conversation. It like makes her worry more.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and very emotional.
Yeah.
Just kind of crying at the drop of a hat, and and that's been coming on recently. She's not always, actually, interestingly enough, since school started, it's changed again.
Okay.
She's much more confident again, and I think a big part of it is that she's at the age, like I don't know. I mean, we were talking about when we met, you were 9.
Yeah.
And I also started at Tada when I was 9, and just this morning, Cian asked me, "Do you remember 4th grade?" And I said, well, I remember my teacher. I don't remember a lot of school in 4th grade, but I remember that's when I started at Tada.
That's a big year.
It's a huge year, and there's so many feelings, especially as a young girl. Like you just feel a lot. You become so much more aware of yourself.
Right.
Among other people. You become aware of people seeing you and how you come across to people. She's much more aware of like, I make sure I do my hair in the morning. Just these little things like that show a level of awareness that wasn't there even a year ago. So I'm sure a lot of that is sort of going to happen. There's that kind of happens at this age. But I've also realized that she doesn't have an outlet right now. And so we've been really talking to her about what that might be. Her brother's super into sports. If he needs to like remove himself from a situation, like he will walk out the door of our house and shoot hoops in the driveway, and he's 7. Like he knows,
so great. Yeah.
He knows that that's a space he can go where he kind of like lets go of whatever's bothering him, and he's in the present moment. And I haven't really seen her find something like that yet. She really wanted to start doing musical theater right when the pandemic hit. Like she's a theater kid that hasn't yet discovered what that means. But she's totally that kid. And then the pandemic hit, and now all these theaters are in jeopardy, and a Zoom theater class is nothing like what we grew up experiencing.
No.
So it's not really so interesting for her. She doesn't really want to do that,
Yeah. That's tough. I mean, 9 is when I first started exhibiting anxiety symptoms.
Interesting.
And also when I first started writing music. And also when I joined Tada. So it was a big year all along.
See?
All around. But it was interesting, like those sort of initial anxiety symptoms did pass. Like they did sort of Like I
That's
had a
good to know.
period. Yeah, I mean, I had a period where I was almost like OCD in my
Mm.
behaviors, and it was right after my uncle died.
Mm.
And they did subside, um, and then they came back again for after 9/11,
Oh,
which
yeah,
we
I'm
were,
sure.
yeah,
I mean, you lived right there. Didn't you
yeah,
live right there?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
That
kind
must have
of
been hard.
it was, and you, I mean, you were young too,
Well,
so.
but I graduated high school that year.
Oh, okay,
So
so you're a
I had
bit older.
actually just left the city to go to
Okay,
college.
okay,
So I had a different experience of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess like how do you? Obviously, I know nothing about parenting, but how do you kind of navigate like when you like? I don't want to say take it seriously, but
Mm-hmm.
like when you sort of give your child space to kind of have a difficult period that
Mm-hmm.
can pass because this is a difficult time, and
Mm-hmm.
when you think like, okay, maybe there's like an underlying issue here that needs to be addressed, like how do you even think about that?
That's a good question. So the thing about parenting is you don't know the answer to anything. You just kind of like, you just go with it. And like
Right.
every day, different manifestations of yourself, different manifestations of your kids. And so, right now, I think that she's really smart. I think that she is self-aware beyond her years also, but she's not emotionally ready to understand the level of understanding that she has of the world.
Right.
So she's taking in all of this information and she just doesn't know what to do with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Um, she's always been someone who thinks ahead and who sort of goes, but what if this happens? And then what if that happens? And what if that happens? So, she's sort of, her brain sort of lends itself to thinking beyond what's in front of her and going,
Right.
what about this? What about that? And making all these connections. But she tends to, right now, she's finding a lot of sort of scary and negative connections and
Sure.
possibilities in her
Right.
world.
Right.
And so I think we're taking it as a phase because it's heavy and because we're already seeing it change a bit since she's been able to leave the house as like an independent person again
Right.
for
And
the
be
first
with her
time in 6 months and be
friends.
with friends.
Yeah.
I mean, they wear masks all day, but her class thinned out so much. There's only 12 kids in the class. They can't play at recess and they can't sit, but her best friend is in her class and they just happen to be sitting right next to each other. So there's all this stuff that like finally she's getting that
Yeah.
she really needed, that we're already seeing a lot of the behaviors change back into more positive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it got really heavy there for a little bit and we just felt like we didn't know what to do to help her,
Right.
how to help her manage those feelings that were coming in so strongly. And I think about my experience at Tada at that age, and I think about how what it has meant to me to have an outlet.
Yeah.
And I've been sort of trying to help her find that. So I try to find things that she loves to do, like singing. Like she loves to sing, but she won't sing
Mhm.
with me because she thinks I'm judging her, which makes me so sad because I'm
Oh.
totally not. Like I really not, like
Right.
I'm like, girl, just go downstairs and sing, like whatever. But I also know that I'm not someone who can practice if I think anybody can hear me. Like to this day, which is
Yeah.
why having a room like this is so important. I can close my door. I
Right.
can just play.
Yeah.
Um, so she
Yeah.
might, I don't know, I think she'll find it, but it's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know
Yeah.
when you start thinking like, okay, maybe this is more of a chronic thing because she's still only 9. So it's
Yeah.
like, I think it'll manifest in different ways over the years.
Yeah, you'll just keep your eye on it. And
I
it
guess.
sounds like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, yeah, having creative outlets and helping her figure out what she wants to do and how she wants to express herself,
Right.
that's so important.
Right.
Yeah, so what do you think the relationship is between kind of processing, world events or your personal life and expressing it through a creative outlet? Like, what does that do for you?
I'm sort of one of those people that processes and actually does something with the feelings like after the fact. So it's been actually really difficult for me to find the creative space inside of my body and heart to actually like make my music. But also that has been a pattern ever since I had kids. Like I feel like create like, and I mean, this might sound really airy-fairy, I have no idea. I lived in Sedona for a really long time, so I'm super new agey about certain things, but like I feel like becoming a parent, especially when you and I'm sure there's lots of different ways this manifests in all the different ways you can become a parent. But for me, physically, literally growing people inside my body and then having those people like become their own people and putting I feel like all my creative energy went into that.
Yeah.
It's like the moment I found out I was pregnant for the first time, this like fog settled over my brain, and I couldn't quite remember like what I was supposed to do today and like how did that melody go, and like all of these things just like they were gone. And I've been struggling with that reality since I had kids. I mean, my creative juices have been going into my kids.
Yeah.
You know, so here we are in this crazy time, and I feel ready to put creative energy back into myself again.
How long has it been then since you've written your own music? Because you have a lot of music online that you've written.
I do and I don't. Okay. So in 2007, which was really a long time ago now, was when I was in LA and like really pushing a lot of my music, 2007 through 2010 roughly. You know, I had a lot of friends at Room 5 who are our mutual friends now, who were playing at Santa Monica and getting their bands together, and we were meeting once a month to jam and to connect and to share songs we were writing. And there was this cool creative energy that was around, you know, becoming an artist.
Right.
And that was what I really wanted. And but Los Angeles is a little, it's hard for that. Like it just became so much about getting people to come to shows that it's like so much energy went into that. Would I get paid at the end of the night? Right. I don't know. It was a lot of that. So it just like it wasn't fun. So during that, after a while, it wasn't fun anymore. And so during that time, that's when a lot of the music that's online is from that time.
Okay.
Since then, I've actually written a lot of songs. But people haven't really heard them.
Okay.
So that's sort of something I'm grappling with a little bit. Like, what am I waiting on? What do I have to lose? You know, I mean, my kids are amazing. My family's awesome. But there is sort of this, I don't want to let myself down, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of sort of an internal, like, dialogue going on about that. Like, well, what if people don't like it? Like, I didn't used to think that much about that. But just sort of, and, you know, and I say, what if people don't like it? And that's actually not really what's in my head. It's really more like, what if I put out my music and whatever I'm expecting, which I can't even put my finger on, doesn't happen.
In that time, you started J3 Music Studios.
Well,
so you started your own company.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And you also, didn't you also co-found a company with your husband?
Right.
So
that's true. Oh yeah. Thanks for that reminder. You know, I guess I sort of like, you know, it's like in my head, they're like in these different different boxes.
Sure.
You know, so truth, yes. My creativity I've been sort of entrepreneurial, and that's also a seriously creative act that for a long time, I didn't actually see it that way. I thought it was like a means to an end. Like, this is a service I know I can provide. I basically offer music lessons and classes locally.
Yeah.
And my studio grew really fast, and it became the coolest, like, this is the space. And my students would walk in here and feel safe
Yeah.
to express and like create whatever they needed to create that day. And, you know, I was able and have been able to provide that for a while. Um, but you know, there's sort of that little like voice in the back of your head, like, what about your music? What about your music?
Right.
What about your
Right.
music? You know, and it is different. And it also requires a different level of energy. I also tend to think that, like, you know, by having paints and putting our children in front of the paints is like our way of staying connected to creativity. And in some ways it is, because what you're doing is you're passing on,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, a love for the process of using paints and the canvas to your kids. But
Yeah.
that's not your art.
Right.
That's their art,
Right.
right? And so it really starts with remembering that your art is just as important as their art.
Yeah.
And even if you have never really sat down to make art, but you've always had that voice,
Right.
you don't even know what that looks like. Like, what does
Right.
it even mean? What is my art? Well, you don't know
Right.
until you just start throwing some paints up there. There are people walking around, myself included, who have that little voice in the back of our minds. And in particular, I'm thinking about parents, but
Yeah.
this really goes for anybody who feels
Right.
this way. Um, there's that little voice going, you know, pick up your guitar again. You know, start writing that novel you've been thinking about. You know, these little whispers of reminders of our
Yeah.
true selves.
Right.
And when you become a parent, it's like you stop listening to that,
Mm-hmm.
because so many other things seem so much more important all of a sudden, you know. And like, it's like if you don't put your family and your kids first all the time, it's like, well, you know, well, maybe, and this is just me also, and maybe not everybody feels this way, but the truth of the matter is that when I take that time for my creative self,
Yeah.
even if it's just a little bit here and
Yeah.
there, I become a better parent, because I'm honoring who I am, and I'm also modeling for my kids
Yes.
how to be more authentically themselves.
Right.
You know, and so I've been thinking really a lot about this idea of what it means to creatively parent and to be a creative parent, like someone who intentionally is honoring the creative with a capital C inside themselves, intentionally to find a deeper connection to themselves, but also to find a deeper connection to their families, because they're more present with their families when they do that.
So how do you set those boundaries as a parent, and when do you set those boundaries, and
That's
how?
That's a super good question. It's really, really hard to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
I think part of it is like recognizing that you need to. There's like a point where you
Right.
go like, okay, I need this. I need this for myself and I need it for my kids, but it starts with myself, because if I can be present with myself, then I can be more present for others.
Yeah.
So there are a few things that like are really important. One is to actually create a physical space in your home specifically for your own creative connection to whatever it is that you are hearing in the back of your voice. So even if it's a space that is a multi-purpose space,
Mm-hmm.
you know, by 8 o'clock when the kids go to bed, this table is clear so that from
Mm-hmm.
8 to 10, this is my zone. Sometimes it's about creating space in the body. So
Mm.
sometimes, like if you were always one of those kids that like was like a kinesthetic learner, like you were someone who ran or did a lot of sports, or somebody who like needed to move your body all the time,
Yeah.
then exercise is a really good way. Like having space in your body is a really good place to start. Getting up and just running around the block once. Some people need to create space in their minds. So some people aren't sleeping because their minds are racing about all the what ifs and all the scary things and all the unknowns. Finding ways to create space in your mind can look like mindfulness, can look
Mm-hmm.
like 5 minutes of meditation throughout the day. I actually have like a corner in my bedroom that is basically my hiding spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I call it my peace corner.
Uh-huh.
And it's just got like a little cushion. And if you walk into the door of the bedroom, you can't see me if I'm sitting there. So there are times in the day where I either yell or I go, I'll be right back. And I disappear. Excuse me. We'll talk about this in 5 minutes. And then I disappear and I go sit and I just take some deep breaths. And those deep breaths start out really shallow and then they get deeper and deeper. And then I sort of go like, oh, okay, all right, I got to get back to dinner because it will burn. And then I like, you know what I mean? It's like, but it's sort of the intention of like, going to a space that creates space in my mind in those moments. That's why I say having a physical space is so important. Right. And then also communicating to your family what you need and what you're doing and why it's important. Mm-hmm. And at first it sounds really hard to express. Mm-hmm. No, I can't play with you because I'm thinking right now. You know what I mean? Like I'm spacing out. I'm in my head right now. I can't play, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is that you need to do for your creativity, which oftentimes looks like spacing out. And that's fine. It actually, you need to do a lot of spacing out, as we know. Yeah. You need to like put yourself into that silent space where the story comes into your head, where the melody appears, where whatever, there has to be that space. Right. There's also developing a habit of going into that space. And then there's also like intentionally, when you're ready, looking for a community of others, the community of people who are also in love with the same art that you are, also love to take bird walks with their cameras, also love to paint on the weekends, and finding that there's like a lot of us out there who need to express, to feel whole. One habit that I'm working on cultivating right now is waking up earlier. Mm-hmm. When I wake up 1 hour before my kids, that hour is mine alone. And it's quiet and it's still slightly dark and nothing has started yet and my mind is empty. Yeah. There's not a lot of creativity, like productive creativity that happens for me in that time, but that is the silence that I need to find the space that I then will use later for my productive creativity.
Since the pandemic, you've been hosting kind of like Zoom parenting creative consulting. Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
We talk about the challenges of what it means to be a creative in a pandemic where maybe you're not someone who can, like myself, who's able to process a lot of these big feelings right now. My secret mission within doing this creative parenting calls was to find a community.
Yes.
I didn't really have one.
Yeah.
So I'm like seeking it out by creating it myself. Absolutely. I'm like, well, anyone else want to come?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there it was, From there, I found some incredible people who came to me and said, hey, do you do like one-on-one coaching sessions? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, heck yeah, and it's not something I'd done before. I mean, I teach and mostly it's young musicians. Right. But I truly see everyone as a musical or a creative being.
I saw you wrote on the Music Mommy blog that your husband sometimes works in the closet.
Oh, yeah. When he wrote Saleh, which was a short film that he wrote that he ended up writing and directing, flew to Sierra Leone with what little equipment he had, basically trained all of his crew and his actors because everyone was from the village where his grandmother's from. He sort of just told everyone what he wanted them to do, came home with all this footage, and then edited it all together and won a bunch of awards for it. And he wrote that in the closet when our daughter was like firstborn. Mm-hmm. By the time she was 3 months, he went to Sierra Leone for 2 months and shot that. Like, he's the creative who needs to disappear from all things for a significant amount of time that, like, when you have a family and you want to just go into that closet whenever you feel like it and stay there for 3 hours, like, that doesn't always really, that never actually meshes. So he struggles with his own habits because that's how he creates.
That's hard.
It's really hard. It's really hard. It's a struggle.
Can you talk about your work together and your company?
It's not a company so much as it's an initiative that we've been developing over many years, starting in 2010, and it's we work on it and we pull back from it and we work on it just like the creative process. It's
Yeah.
called the Creative Arts Initiative.
Okay.
It started as a workshop program for teenage girls in the village of Kabbalah, which is where Ali's grandmother and a lot of his family lives to this day, where his organization is based. And we basically would do these 2-week creative arts programs where we invited young women to do a photography workshop where they would take pictures of their world and stand up and speak to what these photographs meant to them. We did a poetry workshop. It's been developing over many years, and so now his big project is Mama Land Children's Community. There are 7 really sweet and incredible, and I'm going to get choked up talking about them, young girls from the ages of about 5 till about 12 or 13 that we've been taking care of. I say we, but it's really been more my husband and his business partner, Devin, who is incredible, and his family. And they built a home for these girls. These are girls who were orphaned during when Ebola went through Sierra Leone. So they actually took these girls in. They found house mothers to take care of them. They pay for them to go to school. And over the years, they've decided to open this up to more and more children who are in need in the area and be able to create a program that allows them to develop the skills that they need to get out of the village, but then with the mind to take what they learned to come back to help the village that they're from. So the idea is every few years to take in another group of 10 girls from a pretty young age, and then they move through these homes, we pay for them to go to school, and the Creative Arts Initiative is the enrichment program that sort of pulls the whole thing together with an eye of using the creative arts to strengthen the English language. Because there, English is the official language of the country.
Okay.
It's the language of education. It's the language in government. You need to have a strong grasp of English, both speaking and writing, to really, be able to do much, to move higher and higher.
Okay.
So the idea is to use creative writing to strengthen the English language.
Yeah.
What is that story you remember your grandmother telling? Let's write it down.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about grammar, and let's talk about the spelling,
Right.
and let's talk about, ways of self-expression with the mind of like strong women with a strong sense of self, who have a strong grasp of the language that will help them get ahead. So that's what the mission of the Creative Arts Initiative will be now as we are developing the Mama Land community.
And why were these girls orphaned?
A variety of reasons.
Okay.
I mean, Ebola was we talk about the pandemic that the world is dealing with now.
Right.
Ebola was a gruesome version of this.
Okay.
If you were in physical contact with anybody who had it, you were, very likely to get it and very likely to die from it. Then there were villages closer down that started taking in the kids who lost parents, because it's a it's about each one teach one. It's about, taking care of the people around you. The village raises the child, not just the parents. So when there are children like that in need, villages were taking in, but then the resources for those villages there weren't enough.
Okay.
And it was a very difficult process for them to sort of decide who to take in initially. But over a number of years, they started with one little girl, Kumba, who is incredible. And I just cannot wait to see what she does with her life, because she is made of fire. So when we were there for 6 months, I helped out with the girls. My kids actually went to their enrichment instead of going to school. My kids went and studied every afternoon with them during their tutoring time, and they're all my kids' age. So it was just a great experience for us all our kids to be immersed in the culture, for myself to be immersed in the culture. I'm obviously not from there. It's very different. And yeah, it was great.
So you have your family and then you have this kind of extended family
Yeah.
too in
Oh,
Sierra
yes.
Leone.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people to take care of.
It is. It is. And I think my husband feels that pressure a lot. You know, he feels a really strong sense of
Yeah.
wanting to give back
Yeah.
to Sierra Leone and to his family's community, and it's really important. So the back and forth is hard for us as a family for because he does the back and forth and we're here most of the
Right.
time, but it's really necessary.
So if listeners want to find you and listen to
Yeah.
your where can we find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, of course. You can find me at the Music Mommy. And my website is juliajk.com. And, you know, there's like a blog, there's
Yeah.
music, there's videos, there's classes. I'm starting my string of fall classes. In fact, one of the classes that we're doing right now is family guitar. So since everything's
Mm.
virtual, I was like, what about all those parents who said they secretly wished that they played guitar and they're signing their kids up for guitar lessons? I was like, well, why don't you guys just join me? You know, like,
That's great.
right?
Yeah.
So that starts September 16th. It's going to be on Thursday evenings, and it's like for all ages, for like anyone in the household who wants to like kind of bond with their loved ones over learning the guitar and or ukulele, because we can actually do both. There's still some spots if anyone wants to join us. Thank you so much for having
Thank
me and creating
you.
this space, and I'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Love you,
Take
girl.
care. Love you
See
too.
ya.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm very excited for Julia to embark on this reconnection to her own music making. And I think it's so wonderful that she has created this community for herself through Zoom to connect with other parents. I'm really grateful that Julia was so open with me about the anxiety that her daughter is facing right now. And I know that she is doing what my parents did to help me when I was started exhibiting anxiety behaviors at 9, which is helping me find a creative outlet. You know, my parents did enroll me in Tada theater when I was 9 and did encourage me to play music, and that really did help. It helped me feel better. And so it's great to hear that Julia and her husband are encouraging their children to express themselves creatively as a way of processing this very difficult time period. Thanks.